How do we remember different types of information? My name is Kimberly Drakeford, and this is my presentation. Here is your agenda. What is memory, encode and retrieval, sensory short, long-term memory, habituation, short work or working memory, what do we retain, types of memory, let's view it, repetition in memory, and let's wrap it up. What is memory? Memory is the process that is used to acquire, retain, and later retrieve information. It involves three domains: encoding, storage, and retrieval. Encoding is the process of incoming information so that it can be entered into memory. Storage, maintaining information so that it can be entered into memory. And retrieval, accessing or recalling stored information from memory so that it can be used. Now here is a video on encoding information.
Strategies for Encoding Information by Academy of Learning Career College. Learning strategies that help learners structure and translate information from one format to another are most effective. These strategies work by making strong connections in the brain between pieces of information. When this connection is between new information and old information, it helps us remember new information by making connections in the brain to things we already know and remember well. This can also create the right connections between different pieces of information so that they can be more effectively remembered together. Here we present 4 categories of encoding. 1. Connecting information to your own life is an excellent way to encode information. To do this, find examples of a concept in your own life. Understand how this information will be relevant to you in the future. 2. Elaborating on the information that is presented to you. To do this, ask questions during learning and connect current information to other concepts you've studied. Annotate readings with short summaries and questions. 3. Explaining the information in your own words. To do this, explain the process you are taking to solve a problem to yourself. Write a summary of the information you have read. Walk a peer through a process or concept. And 4. Impose structure and organization on
Now, those were some of the strategies. Moving on. You have sensory term memory. This type of memory is where everything you sense and perceive, if you choose to pay attention to something, it gets passed on to your short-term memory. Short-term memory. This type of memory allows you to hold on to ideas or thoughts long enough to take action. Most things get discarded out of short-term memory, but some things get encoded into long-term memory. Long-term memory. This is your closet where you store information and keep it for a while. Your sensory memory is not bad until habituation. Habituation means getting used to sensory stimulus to the point where we no longer notice it or respond to it. Here are some examples. You have this delicious smell of garlic and tomatoes. It's very overwhelming when you first walk through the door. However, after a few minutes, this scent actually dissipate until you barely notice it. Another example, certain noises in the house may cause a newborn baby to cry until they become desensitized to the noise and they no longer frighten the child. Your short-term or working memory is once something has attracted your attention and moves into your short-term or working memory. If it succeeds in penetrating your short-term memory, it is probably something that is most likely significant to you for some reason, something you're looking for, you need to take action on, or surprises or confounds your expectations. Working memory has a relatively short duration and limited capacity, but you use it pretty much constantly throughout the day. What do we retain? Working memory will discard most pieces of information as soon as you're done with them, like the Wi-Fi password at the coffee shop, the number on the freeway exit you need to take, or the phone number that you need to recite over and over until it can get dialed. All these types of information are the kind of thing that you may keep in working memory for the few seconds that you will need it. If it takes longer, You might also keep it there via repetition. Repetition will refresh the information in working memory until it is used and stop repeating. If you repeat something long enough, you will eventually grind it into long-term memory, but that's not the most efficient method. Some information will drop out more quickly if it doesn't have a significance. Now, we've discussed different types of memory. So far, we're going to go into depth of discussing some more different types of memory. We have declarative or semantic memory. This is the stuff you can talk about facts, principles, or ideas like World War II ending in 1945 or your zip code. Episodic memory. This is also a form of declarative memory, but it is specific to stories or recollections from your own experience, like what happened at your graduation or when you started your first job. Conditioned memory. Like Pavlov's dog, we all have conditioned reactions to certain triggers, whether we realize it or not, like when a pet gets excited to the sound of a can opener, which precedes getting fed. Procedural memory. This is the memory for how to perform procedures like driving a car or playing a video game. Flashbulb memory. We seem to have a special type of memory for highly emotional charged events like national catastrophes. And then you have procedural memory. Procedural memory is our memory for how to do things. Specifically, it's our memory for how to do things that require a step-by-step process. Some of the procedures you know are consciously learned, and you can explicitly state each step, but a lot of procedural memory is implicit. And just here are some short video clips that I will show you examples of and more details of these different types of memory. So here we have episodic memory.
In this video, we are going to talk about semantic and episodic memory. If you'll recall, long-term memory can be separated into declarative or explicit memory and non-declarative or implicit memory. In this video, we are going to focus on declarative memory and specifically the two types of declarative memory, semantic memory and episodic memory. So the green area of the chart. Semantic memory consists of the factual and conceptual knowledge about the world and the words used to symbolize such knowledge. So this type of memory supports our language and our ability to use language, and consists of conceptual information and basic general world knowledge. Some examples of semantic memory include spotting a bike on campus and the knowledge that it is a bike, or just knowing that dogs bark, or even what skipping rope is. Semantic memory can also involve what are called scripts, such as knowing what to do when you go out to eat. You know that usually somebody will seat you at a table, that you'll be handed a menu, that you get to pick whatever you want to eat off of the menu. You have a waiter or waitress that gets your food for you. The restaurant staff will prepare the meal for you. You need to pay for your meal before you leave, and so on. So all of that general knowledge that goes into that script. Semantic memory also involves what are referred to as schemas, which include things such as what the characteristics of a nice person are. That, for example, a nice person might do a favor for you or might smile at you, and a nice person isn't going to steal something from you or call you names, for example. Episodic memory, on the other hand, is memory of the personally experienced and remembered events of a lifetime. So this is going to involve memory from one's own perspective, so not events that occurred to somebody else that you may just know about. And it also involves a component of space and time, where something happened and when it was. So some examples of episodic memory include your memory of your 16th birthday party, or how you heard about the attack on the World Trade Center, or even as simple as eating breakfast this morning, what time it was, whether it tasted good, or if you were rushed. It could also include memories of the time you and your best friend laughed so hard that you peed your pants, for example.
So those are just some examples of episodic and semantic memory. Here is the background of conditioned memory.
Around the turn of the century, the great Russian physiologist Ivan Pavlov made an accidental discovery that was to become a landmark in the field of learning. Pavlov was studying the salivation reflex in dogs as part of his research on digestion. He noticed that after the dogs had been brought to the laboratory many times, they would start to salivate even before food was given. What had altered the dog's inborn salivation reflex? Pavlov was fascinated and changed the direction of his research to focus on what he called conditional reflexes. Pavlov knew that placing food in the dog's mouth naturally caused salivation. The unconditioned stimulus food produced the unconditioned response, salivation. Through a series of ingenious experiments, he found that if a new and unrelated stimulus, like a bell, was repeatedly sounded before the food was given, the dogs would learn to salivate when they heard the bell, even when no food followed.
Alright, and now we're going to go on to procedural memory.
Hi everyone, it's Yanis here, and in this video we will explore what is procedural memory. We will look at what it is, how does it work, why it's important, and I'll also share some examples to illustrate it. If this is your first time on this channel, then make sure you subscribe and hit the bell icon to get updates on my latest videos about time management and productivity. Procedural memory is a type of implicit memory and long-term memory, which aids the performance of particular types of tasks without conscious awareness of these previous experiences. These can be things like riding a bike or tying a shoe, and once they are learned, you can perform them at any given time in future. What's important, the procedural memory guides the processes that we perform, and most frequently it resides below the level of conscious awareness. When you're swimming, you don't have to think much about the movement and breathing, as it comes to you naturally.
And that is procedural memory.
In this video, we are going to talk about
Hi everyone,
semantic and
it's Yanis
episodic
here.
memory. If you'll recall,
Now we have flashbulb memory.
Hi everyone, it's Yanis here, and in this video we will explore what is a flashbulb memory. We will look at what it is, how does it work, why it's important, and I'll also share some examples to illustrate it. If this is your first time on this channel, then make sure you subscribe and hit the bell icon to get updates on my latest videos about time management and productivity. A light bulb memory is highly detailed, exceptionally vivid snapshot of the moment and circumstances in which the piece of surprising information was learned about. In other words, flashbulb memories are focused around specific, shocking, emotional events. This might be a shocking event like discovering that one of your friends or family members has an incurable disease. The time around you freezes and limitless thoughts and memories run through your head at that moment, and that
Alright, and that is flashbulb memory.
Hi everyone.
Now we have repetition and memory. With a few exceptions, learning almost always requires practice and repetition. For some reason, these are some of the most neglected aspects of learning and design. When you learn something new, connections are formed between neurons in your brain, like the paths that gradually develop when people repeatedly walk over the same ground. The connections that form in the brain are strengthened and reinforced whenever a learner re-encounters the material. Connections that aren't reinforced will usually fade or become irretrievable. Repetition and practice are necessary to successfully retain most learning for the long term. Let's wrap it up. These are some of the things that we talked about. How memory relies on encoding and retrieval. Learners are besieged with a constant flow of information input and things that needs to be significant. People habituate to stimuli, so the learning design needs to not to fall in one repetitive drone. Repetition and memorization will work to encode information into long-term memory. And there are different types of memory, and utilize multiple types can improve the likelihood of material is retained. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, please email me at kmckee@aum.edu, and that is my presentation.